Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So this is on the back of the last YouTube video, whatever you want to call them, Pursuit of the Truth, about the conflict in Ukraine. Previously I was talking about bias and things like that. But what I wanted to say was about, I ran out of time actually to finish that one, because I think I was talking about how big countries invade little countries and how they will only invade them when they're right next to them, hence why they didn't want Ukraine to join NATO, but of course this could escalate into a third world war. We could get into that territory if Putin was to continue into NATO countries, into Poland say, and then we are getting, shadows of the Second World War, of Adolf Hitler, of Munich. Let's hope it doesn't get to that, but it is a bit disingenuous when you hear all these people saying we're going to stand together, and I get it. I get the sentiment from little people. Yeah, I get it, because we can't do anything, so we'll stand with solidarity by putting flags on Facebook or by putting these sentiments that we are for freedom. We're against war and against invasion, no matter who it is, whether it's the West, whether it, that's condemning Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Ukraine, and all the other ones. Of course, then it gets a bit murky. I'm the type of person, I don't believe in war, but then of course you've got to the reality problem, probably because my brain has been trained in the system. Remember, I've been programmed just like you, just like all of us, been schooled through these biases, through these nuances, through TV, through media, through the way we've been taught, we've been segregated and divided into different species, peoples, based on borders and countries and cultures and histories and etc. That creates it creates the hate, really, doesn't it? When you look at it, it is actually the division that creates hate, because it makes you fear others. It does make you wonder, and I know this question is controversial, but if, say, Putin was brought up in a different time or different place, would he have been the same he is? Would he, because Russia, I tried to talk about before, they've always been like the hated in the movies. They must feel that sentiment of hate, same as Iran has that issue with America. It can't be helpful that every Western movie you see, the enemy, well, it used to be in the past, it was Germans, but then there was the Cold War era. It was, I studied all this when you were decoding movies, how the use of red and all this kind of stuff. So there were lots of movies that had this, and it's obvious that the baddies, sometimes they are Western people, but then they tend to be megalomaniacs, crazy people, and more often than not English people playing them. But in the majority, it tends to be Russians or Chinese these days. So that sentiment, it must do something. When children are watching these movies, they're picking up on these little things. That's why movies have these, if you watch enough movies, you see the same kind of, not stereotypes, but the same kind of uses in a movie to tell you something, like the bandage around the head being someone who's injured, or the sling, or in a horror movie, someone always trips up on a branch and ends up breaking their ankle. In reality, it's probably very difficult to do that, but that's these little things that, those nuances that you pick up on, and you see them enough times, it shapes your world, because our world is shaped. We aren't born, when we look at the truth, we're all human beings. We've cut up these bits of borders, but us as children are taught these borders. We're taught these divisions. Well, that's the truth, actually, isn't it? If you think about it, these children, we teach them to be smaller than they could be, because we teach them that this is the amount that you need to worry about. Same with here, where we've got this. If you believe here that this aggression is wrong, why aren't there troops coming from the so-called good guys, the West? Obviously, because they don't want to be involved in a war that would be very damaging to both sides, because it's more of an equal war. You know, if this was, say, well, yeah, for example, if this was Iraq taking over Kuwait, the country I couldn't remember the name of, that's why they went in, because they knew they could win. They could drop bombs. They didn't care how many civilians they killed. And it's interesting how when you see them, and this is about that bias again, when you see how the media talks about these things, you know, you hear it like civilian targets being attacked. They don't say the same thing, you know, when they talk about the West hitting civilian targets. They hit civilian targets. They killed children and women and schools and all sorts of things. But it's like, oh no, our weapons are very tactical and it was a mistake and this, that and the other. And they give them that benefit of the doubt. But now when it's Russia doing it, it's like, well, we don't know whether that was on purpose or not. I'm rambling a bit, isn't it? Because I was going to talk about this idea of Hitler as well when I was talking about Putin. If you imagine Hitler as the most evil person, you know, all the things that he did, the invasion, if he was, you know, like this idea of who was it that was evil? You know, obviously it was Hitler, and we're all living. If you live in the system, then you are the person and you take on the responsibility. But we live in a time, and those times are different each times, and we look back on different times. Now, I'm thinking, like, if Hitler was born now, would he have still been the same person? I guess it's difficult to say because of all the variables that have changed. But that's, you know, are we truly, you know, because we have a soul and we have freedom and we can make decisions, but we are shaped by the times that we're brought up in. People used to drill holes in people's heads for headaches. But now that would seem barbaric. You know, people, you know, 50 years ago for being, for having different sexual preferences would be jailed, castrated, all sorts of things. Mental health wasn't treated in the same way that it is now. So all these things that when we look at people in the past, you know, that's the thing, like, because it's very difficult to see that, because you then have to admit that how much does the system play in creating individuals, even ourselves? Yes, there are lots of good people. Then you can say, well, is it that, you know, even if he was born today, he still would have been a fascist. He still would have wanted to kill gypsies, Jews, Jehovah's Witnesses, homosexuals. Or would he have been different because he wouldn't have had all those influences that made him Hitler? I don't know. It's easy just to... I'm not trying to defend Hitler or anything like that. Anyone who thinks that that's the case, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about the idea of what makes us us and how we are responsible, because, you know, if I was born that time, that's the thing, if I was born at that time, would my views be the same as they are now? If I was born in my dad's generation or the generation before, we often hear people say, oh, they're old people, they have those views, you know, when, you know, racial views and etc. and all that kind of stuff. So there is something to that. But it shows that it's difficult. If you're not brought up in a certain way, that how you're brought up, how you're molded, that's what I guess I'm saying, is so important. Because it can make you into a dictator, or it can make you into a peacekeeper, like, say, Gandhi. The difference with teachings, the difference with how they're brought up, all these little nuances, they're very important. And that's what makes the system dangerous. When the system isn't working, that's what it can create. Because if this war of Putin's, is it a war of necessity or choice? Or is it because he feels, you know, because we've cut up bits of land and, you know, it's all about money, it's all about power and all these things that are not really intrinsically part of humanity. They're things we learn through being brought up into the system, that this is the way it is around us. So we have to adapt and... what was the word? Not assimilate. Is it assimilate? Into the same thing. And so it's a ever-decreasing circle, something that keeps repeating itself. But the thing I was going to say is that with this situation, when you look at the truth of this, Ukrainians, Russians, They're human beings. Both of them are human beings. They have different ideas. And most of these people, like during the Second World War, Germans and British, in reality, if they really sat down and thought, why am I killing other human beings? It was just because they were doing it, because they thought it was patriotic, because that's what they were told to do. That's what they believed was the right thing to do. But all of them had children and wives and etc. They wasted their lives killing each other. That is a waste of humanity. That's what I'm trying to show, that when you look at the truth of Ukraine and Russia, it's just human beings killing other human beings. For what? For a piece of land. For a piece of land that they will never, ever, ever own. We live and we die. Yes, you can pass on to your children, but we live and we die. We can't possess this place. Why do we need that mentality? That's what I'm trying to show. The system mentality of possession. The dangers that it's brought people, children suffering. When you see these images of these children, how, if you think about it, I thought about it, my own children who are 4, twins, how it would be if I was in Ukraine, if I was Ukrainian, if I had these 2 children and and they're saying to me, why is this happening? Why are we being shot at? Why, is grandpa dead? Why did the Russians come and shoot us? Why? A child's mind is so innocent and actually sees the truth more than we do, because we've been brainwashed into giving those answers back and saying, wow, this is because they're evil people and they're trying to take our land. Whereas they're just the same. They're human beings. It's just they've been taught differently and they've had different experiences which has shaped them. And yes, there is freedom in choice, but I wonder how much of that choice is based on actual freedom and actual how much we've been programmed. Because we repeat sentences, we repeat words. When you listen to yourself, a lot of the things you say is what you've heard from other people say. The catchphrases, the sayings that we all say, that we repeat. Sometimes we say them, we don't even know really what they mean, but we say them because we've been programmed into that thought process. But imagine how it is. But these children see it truthfully. They see the pain that system is causing, because that's what's causing this. How we've brought up each other to see each other. How we've brought up each other to see the place that we found ourselves upon. This beautiful existence, this beautiful life that we all have, that we could share with each other, that we don't need to possess this bit and that bit. That is like cavemen instinct. Are we cavemen still? Do we still want to live that way? Can we look back at our children and tell them that this is the right way of life, that we kill each other? And I know there will be a lot of people, because they won't see this idea of, outside the box, they see, well, I'm part of this system and this is the way life is and we can't change it. And yeah, that's true, and to a certain extent, except in reality, yes, it isn't true, because we can change it, because we all have freedom. All of us. But the problem is because the way the system is, it's made us subjugated to the idea of hierarchy and people in power and politicians and all this kind of stuff. And the power's been taken away from us effectively. Or maybe it never works because it only works collectively. Or maybe we can't work our system because we always have to have people in charge of us. I don't know whether there is any other way, because the problem is I've been schooled in that, in democracy and in fascism, in autocracy and all that, all the different ways of running a government. Maybe there is a more utopian way, a more, I suppose some people would say, what's the word, communist way, but the problem is communist has been tainted by all the dictators, so that word you can't use anymore. But that idea of us all working for each other and all being equal. But we've all seen Animal Farm and we saw it all fail. 2 legs good, 4 legs, 2 legs bad, 4 legs good. How it changes once power's involved. But it just, I mean, on the actual, like, if you look at this from a system point of view, from most people's point of view, this is a tragedy that's happening. Innocent men, women and children are being, lives are being put in danger, and some are being killed. And soldiers who are just trying to defend their bit of land are dying where their fellow brothers are killing them, killing each other for power, for an illusionary concept. But, anyway, in the system, yes, I get it. It's a tragedy what's happening. There's no excuse for what Vladimir Putin's doing. We don't need to kill each other anymore. Why would you be threatened? Even if Ukraine joined NATO, you're a massive country. There's no way NATO's ever going to step into Russia, because the West doesn't want a war with a country that's equal to itself, that has nuclear powers. It doesn't want that. Yeah, it may have wanted to put spies in there or influence and all that kind of stuff, but you're in charge of your own country, you can do whatever. We all are patriotic to our own piece of land, isn't it, in the system? So there's no real danger. The danger is only your own fear of danger. So yeah, in the system view, what Vladimir Putin is doing is on the verge of evil, because anyone who this is not just Vladimir Putin, this is the George W. Bushes, the Tony Blairs, all those warmongers that will put other people in danger for themselves while they are sitting in their bunkers. It's not the days of old where the king used to be out on the front on his horse, but even then I expect he was very protected, or the Elvises in their cages. But we got to stop this idea of fighting for other people when we probably don't. Do we believe in I suppose most people do believe, isn't it, in the occupation of their own bit of land as theirs. But I don't see how people don't see past that now in this day and age, bringing us out from the system now, seeing each other. But they don't, isn't it? Because I've seen like that Louis Theroux program, and I see it in reality. In day-to-day existence, I see how people treat my wife just because she's a different colour than me. The things she tells me that she has to go through. Why do we live in a place like that where people are so... the thing is, it's not just a minority, because the thing is, it's just happening. Why is it happening? Why are people still this way where they won't see each other as just fellow human beings, fellow brothers and sisters? That's not something, crazy. That's reality. That's truth. If you cut us open, as Shakespeare said, do we not bleed the same colour? I don't know if that's the actual end of the line. We're the same. We're actually the same. It's just we're moulded differently. We're the same bit of clay, if you want to use Quranic or biblical terms, that's been moulded into humanity. And maybe that's a metaphor for not physically, but the idea that's what we are. Because when we're babies, we have some knowledge, but not. But the majority of what we become is what we're taught, which is what I was trying to clumsily talk about at the beginning. Each one of us. And maybe that's where, if we could get that right, maybe we could live in this system of money. But I don't see the benefit of money, because money is a restrictive thing. Because it restricts us from being able to do good, from being able to do the right thing. Like with, say, COVID. If this was if COVID was this killer, well, it's killed millions of people. If we did the right thing, money would have been out the window. There's no profit. There's no trademarking your vaccines, your cures. There's giving the cure to everyone, working together to make one or maybe two different vaccines, working together, sharing data. That didn't happen. Organizations, competed with each other, trademarked things, made money to keep them running, and now maybe are making some profit. So it wasn't done in the way, money restricted, because money, that idea of I must get this thing so our company can make money, so I get a bonus, that mentality. So I don't see money as being beneficial in this in a world where we want to progress humanity. It's something that's always going to keep us back. Same as I believe the system that we live within of possessing, this idea of we possess these bits of land. We're not. We're stewards of these bits of land. We come and we go and we pass it on. We need to get this out of our minds of that we're British, we're American, we're Russian, we're Ukrainian, we're Chinese, we're Iraqians, we're these things. We need to remember that these things are man-made concepts, but people we never met. They've given us these things from the past, when their way of looking at the world was, well, into most extents, racist and oppressive and all those kinds of things. And we've got to realise and wake up that is our history. That is how humanity was, and we don't want to be that in the future. So we've got to make sure that we're not taking those oppressive and divisive things into our future for humanity. But then how do you change it? That's the thing. How do you unpiece this puzzle that's working but not to the best? It is working. The system does work. We all do live. We all do enjoy life. But not everyone enjoys it to the same extent. And the problem is that the people that enjoy it the best are the ones that usually are in control of it, either by using their money and power, because it's not always politicians that are actually in control. It's the military, it's the big businesses. How do we get them to change their mind and to mold us, mold this place that we're in, mold our minds into a way that we don't need wars, we don't need to kill each other, because it benefits not humanity. It benefits that division and that oppression. Because that's what it does to us. It makes us pawns on a chessboard. Do we want to be like that? Or do we want to throw that chessboard away and live all together without need of killing each other? Because everyone equally has everything. Everyone has a nice life. That's not that we have all the resources to do that. We have the power to do that, but we choose not to do it because we choose to keep the same system. Because the majority of us are already gone. We've been moulded and the clay is set, and now it can't be broken. And people are too scared of chipping it away. It's going to break everything, losing everything that they have. I don't know. It's a very complicated thing. It's just a shame. I don't know if we're ever going to succeed in humanity actually not being oppressive, not being divisive, but actually working together, not having restrictions in our lives and unnecessary things that don't actually benefit mankind. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.